onto PPC, and neither of them went. Okay, so now we're live, Leigh.
All right, great. I'm happy to know that we're live, even though for me, I don't see anybody. Very, as we know, but we're not going to spend 5 minutes doing that.
We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to trust the process. We are live.
Okay, we have progress. All right, so this is not legal advice. I'm Leigh Daniel, and I'm here with my friend and co-host, Mary. As we know, but we're not going to.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not switched off. Sorry. No, I must have. No, I don't. I have no idea why. Sorry, Leigh. I have no idea.
That's all right. I think it might have been me.
It was okay.
I think it might have been me. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Let's start again. So I'm Leigh Daniel, and this is not legal advice. And this is my friend and co-host, Allison Reiner. And I'm a divorce lawyer who has had many years of experience with both legal and also people asking me questions. And I always preface it by saying, this is not legal advice. And sometimes I take them off the clock then because I'm going to go into a little story or, and so I realized that while I was doing that, there were so many questions that I didn't have the answers for. But fortunately, because of Project Positive Change, I have so many experts that do have some of the answers. So Allison, tell everybody about you.
And I am one of the experts, hopefully, who has some of the answers. I'm Alison Reiner. I'm a Loved Again and Forever coach, which is basically a relationship coach who works with women who are at the difficult place in their marriage. They're wondering whether they want to stay married, they want to leave, weighing up their options, and actually probably more truthfully, not weighing up their options because, that's the place that we tend to bury our heads. We tend to hope that everything just passes by and everything goes back to normal. And I help you get really clear on what it is you want from your relationship, but more than a bigger picture from your life, because the relationship really is, it's one facet of the whole. When it's not working, it tends to color everything else. So I take you back and we have a look at the whole and really get clear on your vision for the future and where this relationship or a relationship fits into it. So, some people decide that, yes, this is a relationship they want to work on, and we make that transformation, or no, it's time to leave. And then we get you resilient and emotionally ready to go through the divorce process, which, listening to you and having spoken to my clients is not an easy place to be. You need to be a certain.
It is, and one of the biggest problems that I see is forgiveness, and that's why we decided to talk about that today. And I can tell you that from a divorce lawyer's perspective, not forgiving somebody can be more profitable. But that's not the way that I want people to approach their divorce or to approach their marriage, because a lot of people let their anger and their hurt and just spite drive them in the divorce. And first of all, that's super expensive. And that is not going to make you feel any better. And so for me, we were talking about forgiveness. There's two sides. There's forgiving yourself and there's forgiving your spouse. And maybe forgiving all the other people that have hurt you. Maybe your spouse is having an affair and, there's forgiving them. Family members that want to talk about you or want to shame you, or suddenly they've turned on you because you're getting a divorce from their child, right? So there's forgiveness that has to be done all around. And what do you think, Allison, as far as forgiveness? What do you tell your clients?
What I tell my clients is, forgiveness. If you don't forgive, it's like having a headache and banging yourself with a hammer to try and get rid of it. The only person you're really harming by not forgiving is yourself. Yes, of course, you can cause problems for the other parties involved. You can make their lives unpleasant, but all you're doing is fueling their reason to leave you in the first place, that you're just reconfirming their reasons for wanting a separation. But ultimately, the only person that's ever going to suffer is you. You're carrying it with you. It's colouring your view of this relationship, but it's also colouring the view of the world. And therefore you go out post-divorce into the world and you see, I think we've got Pete joining us now.
I think, we have Pete. Possibly.
Looks like you.
Looks like me, but it's actually Pete. You'll be surprised it's not me. Pete.
So when he's going to...
Are you there, Pete?
Yes, can you hear me?
You, and
I can hear you. There you are.
Hello. Sorry about that.
That is a beautiful background there.
It really is. That's making me feel very peaceful. Very ready to forgive anybody at the moment.
Yeah, let's go forgive everybody on Pete's couch. That sounds weird. Pete,
Yeah.
Pete, we're just talking about, let me just catch you up. This is Pete. And Pete, just to introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are. This is our first male participant on our show. For any of you who may think that we don't like men, we love men.
You love men.
We do, in fact. And so, Pete, can you tell everybody who you are and what you do, and then we'll hop back in forgiveness.
Sure. So I'm Pete Casaboon. I'm proud to be a visionary with Project Positive Change. Leading for a long time, just absolutely adore her. First time I've ever met Allison. So hello, Allison. I'm an angelic intuitive medium. I'm known as the angel encourager. My job is really to help people to find their own authentic truth and really step into power in this world.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Nice to meet you.
There's nobody who knows more about forgiveness than those angels.
That is
I was
so
thinking
true.
about that. I was thinking about this morning because I was brought up in the church, and a different. Allison, you're Catholic, right?
Yeah.
And Pete, what religion are you?
Well, I go to the Unitarian Universalist, so I'm getting more Buddhist as I go. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, and we all religions, I'm sure, have some part of forgiveness. And what I know about forgiveness is what I learned from the Bible. I've learned more about it, and I especially learned what you said, Allison, is that it just permeates. If you don't forgive somebody, it just permeates who you are. It's just an energetic thing. You carry this heaviness. You likened it to a headache. It can cause you to have physical symptoms if you don't work through those issues. So, Pete, what do you have from either your perspective or those special angels' perspectives about forgiveness?
Well, it's so funny because yesterday I had kind of a traumatic weekend, and I was ready to see what the title of the show was, and I just started laughing because I was like, I think the universe is so funny. This past year has been this year of really like making me really step up my game. I was kind of doing this whole kind of love and light thing, and then I was really kind of called forth to show that spirituality, I think, should be active. Like, should look in the dark alleys, and we should be looking at, because God is everywhere, and that means we as spiritual beings should just dig our head in the sand every time something's like love and light, So that's really been brought home to me, and it's when you don't forgive somebody, when you hold something against someone, it's almost like holding that hot coal in your own hand. Energetically speaking, it's really not them that's really getting hurt, it's really you getting hurt. So much about, I think, the reason forgiveness is so important is really not even for that other person. I think it's one of the most wonderful selfish things that you can do to forgive somebody is by letting go of that energy in your own self, because you're really, like Oprah says, you can't have something new when your hands are full of something old. She says it a different way, but basically,
where's Oprah when we need her?
Yeah, it's like it's like you're hanging on to this wall cliff and you can't climb any higher. You can't slide down with however your new path, because you're gripping on and hanging on. And one of the most amazing ones methods that I use, I think it's all about really learning the different methods that are really helpful. Have you all ever heard of Ho'oponopono?
Yeah,
I
love it.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody what that is?
So, and I'd like to tell just a short little story with it too, when I do, because I think it's real important for people to really kind of understand. So Ho'oponopono is basically a Hawaiian technique. It's basically 4 statements that you use, and it can be really hard to make these statements when you feel yourself as the victim. When you have that victim mindset, because you're picturing whoever the person, the situation, whatever it is that you're really kind of holding against, and you basically say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And if you're feeling like you're the victim, saying I'm sorry is so hard. And I've even heard of people actually putting a statement after, you low down, can I say bastard? Or whatever it is.
Listen, we've said a lot of stuff.
Okay, so if you have to follow it with something to be able to stomach saying that, you can. But
what did you say though? The I'm sorry, what? Say it again.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Please forgive me. Okay.
Thank you. I love you. And the whole time you have to picture in your mind who this is and kind of be projecting that energy toward them. And I know the first time I ever did it was directed to towards my stepfather. And the angels told me, they said, now there's going to be a result. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what they meant. But about an hour later, my mom called me and she said, good news, Tori forgives you and now you're back in the will. And I immediately went back in that victim state. I was like, he forgave me? You know what I mean? And also I was like, oh, this is what they were trying to tell me, is that there would be a result. So I was able to get myself out of that victim mindset and back into that victorious mindset. But it's so important to realize that's really what you're doing, is trying to step out of that, but also know that there can be a result from it that may be a little bit unexpected.
Well, I thought you were going to say anyone's dead. I was thinking, oh.
No, he's still living. Anyway,
still living, people. Still living. Well, I wrote that down because so as far as forgiving people, I find that it comes up quite a bit in romantic relationships, whether you're married or not. And so I have had that situation where somebody has hurt me, lied to me, I felt used, and so hard to forgive them. And when I was younger, I used to just call them names. That was, I found that to be effective in ending the relationship, is just to call them names. I mean, younger, like when I was in college. And this concept of forgiveness has come back around, for me to realize from a space of a spiritual, from a spiritual place, an energetic space, that you can't hold on to it. But I don't know. I never, like back then especially, I just couldn't grasp how I can even start. So that's one suggestion. Allison, what do you tell? I mean, how do you start that process of forgiveness?
It's funny. I was thinking that, one of the ways that I start, and it's kind of similar. I've used the Oponono myself. And because it was too difficult, it was too painful to picture that person, I was actually forgiving myself through the process. And I think, if I understood well, it doesn't matter. It's just that change in mindset, that change in thinking when you're doing it. And that's something that I try and work with my clients. And sometimes, they're very resistant, is the first person to forgive is you.
Yeah.
You can't forgive anyone else until you've begun that process of forgiving yourself. And there's a lot of resistance there, because as you say, as Pete says, when you're in that victim mode, and no one likes to admit that they're a victim either. That's, this is all part and parcel of being a victim. So we don't like to admit it, and therefore we don't like to admit that we've got anything to forgive in ourselves. So it's really working with that. And, what if there was something to forgive? How would you go about it? And really creating space for them to see where they've been hurt, and how forgiving themselves for the choices they made when they didn't know any better can open something up, and then allows the process of looking at the other person. And for me, one of the things I always say is, all you need is the willingness to maybe be thinking about it at some point in the future. You don't need to do it now. Nobody's going to, if it was as easy as to say, you treated me like shit for the last 25 years, I forgive you, we wouldn't be here talking about it. So
right.
Having the willingness to consider it as a possibility, I think, is often the best that we can hope for when we're starting out in the process.
Yeah. And well, the willingness, right. And so, but on a practical level, so you have to have willingness. But what I have done is I've written letters to them. I've written letters about, and because I think that we harbor a lot of the anxiety and hate and, hostility about whatever they've done inside us, right? And after we've exhausted telling all of our friends, that is. But I think that for me, getting it all out, and just writing and saying, and just, that's always helped me. Like I had someone yesterday, and he was talking about how angry he is in the situation that he's going through with his wife, and how they just are back and forth and bickering. And I said, if you could just turn that away from her and just try to get that out try to get it out a different way. And I referred her to one of our other members, Karen Monster Peters, because he really needs help, because there are children around and he needs to know how to deal with that. So for me, journaling has really been super helpful.
Yeah, it's so a process. And I guess I should also say with the Ho'oponopono, you don't necessarily just going to do it once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It may be something you have to repeat over and over again. And I know I had a client one time that had a lot of forgiveness issues, and the angels just told me to tell her to go learn karate. So, there's like you say, journaling. Another way is to move it physically. And Archangel Azrael is just screaming in my ear to make sure that everybody knows that he's the Archangel of Forgiveness. So, okay, I'll finally say
okay. Hey, Azrael.
He's the one that helps us with guilt and sorrow. And he's actually called the Angel of Death because he's the one that comes to you when you're dying, or somebody that's grieving, or somebody that works with the grieving. So and that's the time when forgiveness can be paramount, because you can no longer ask the forgiveness, or you think you can't, if somebody's transitioned. But it's really interesting how you can have some of the best relationships with people after they've crossed over, because now they've stepped into their whole being, and now you can have a conversation with them where they can kind of understand, even more than they were before.
Yeah. And getting into like a meditative state, and then kind of envisioning that person and looking at them in that state of love and opening your heart to the possibility, like Allison said, to the willingness that you can forgive them, whoever they are. It can be tough to do, and also because people don't really want you to forgive. I mean, you have. I always can forgive faster than my friends and family. If somebody's done something to wrong me, everybody's mad, and so you get encouraged, you get validated. How horrible that happened to you. I mean, I see that in my office all the time, and I try to get people away from that. Let's not focus on that. But everybody around them focuses on, look how you've been done wrong,
Yeah. There's nothing worse than that self-justified anger. Look what he did to me, or she did to me. Poor me. And then, there's nowhere to go with that except, to keep it in. And it
becomes part of your egoic structure.
Yeah, and
it becomes part of who you are. You know what I mean? And like you say, you're even like getting something out of it. You're getting an energy exchange. That's why a lot of people like to stay in depression, because then they have like this thing that they can use. People are like, oh, I'm so sorry. They get the sympathy, or they get the whatever, in that same situation. I have a friend that I often have a role with, and she says, am I talking about it too much? And I always tell her, you have to monitor, like, when you're discussing something that's happened, does it feel like it's moving, or do you feel like you're regurgitating it? As long as it feels like it's moving, then it's okay, I think, to talk. Because I think, especially in the spiritual world, we're not supposed to talk about anything negative, and but then the problem is we don't get anything moved. You know what I mean?
And that's that really annoys me. And one of the things that all these Zen people that say we shouldn't blame, you need to blame, you need to be angry, you need to scream and shout and swear, and either journal it or find somebody that you trust to say it out loud to, because you need to know what those feelings are. You need to be able to give them names to move through it and make a decision, or become willing to let it go. You can't, if it's just in your head, or if it's something that you've been pushing down for the last 20, 30 years, or even 6 months, it needs to come out. So I'm very much in favor of bitching and whatever, as long as that's the first stage, as long as that's not the end stage. And that's, I think that's something everyone's frightened about, isn't it? That it goes there and it doesn't go any further. And then you're stuck in that loop. So there's a bit of consciousness about it.
Yeah, I think it, like I've said it before, that thing, you have to feel it to heal it. And I think when you're evaluating what you've done, like somebody has come into me and said, I can't believe I'm doing this to my children because they're going through a divorce. And they are holding in their heart, they can't forgive themselves because they think they failed their kids. And so I think that you really just have to acknowledge when you're having those feelings. It is better to acknowledge it than to keep it balled up, and because that's going to create this energetic distance between you and your children. If you think you're harming them, you need to acknowledge to yourself, how you feel, like just like Allison said, and to work through it, like Pete said, rather than to just let it sit on you like a heavy blanket. I've done this and I'm ruining my kid's life, which I always say, no, you're not. But
you can.
Well, right. I mean, you can reframe it. You have to start acknowledging your pain, which is the first step. And then being willing to see it differently, which is the reframing, and then to forgive yourself and there's so many things that happen in a long-term marriage that you could forgive yourself for, right? I mean, not just the cheating. If there was cheating, that's a big one. but
even, even with that,
huh?
even with that, I was talking in my Facebook group over the weekend about this, and a lot of the reasons that people cheat is that lack of connection, is that desperate need to feel loved, to feel that if somebody's willing to to give me attention, then I must be worth something. So even that, to beat yourself up on the fact that you've got low self-esteem is never going to move you anywhere. So, there are always reasons behind it, apart from the serial cheaters, and, that's a different story, and we're not talking about that. So it's, really, being able to look yourself in the eye and know that you're human, know that you've got vulnerabilities, you're weak, you've got weaknesses, you're not perfect, none of us are, none of us are ever going to be perfect, and actually, you don't want to be. Because you can't connect, if you're perfect, there's no way for other people to connect, and that's, I tried to be perfect my whole life. I had the perfect mask, which meant that nobody actually knew who the hell I was. Nobody could get close to me. Nobody could see that I was happy, sad, miserable, suffering. Nobody saw anything apart from what I was willing to show. And that's a damn lonely place to be. So, being able to, and that's why I always go back, no matter where we start, I always get back to the self-love thing for exactly that reason. To forgive yourself, you need to be able to first of all, accept yourself, acknowledge who you really are and accept yourself, warts and all. And then it's easier to say, all right, well, do you know what? I'm human, just like Leigh, like Pete, like everyone else out there. So I'm going to make mistakes. Here's another one. How do I best manage it now?
Right. And Pete, so you were married before, and you had a kind of unusual situation. Are you comfortable sharing that, or?
Sure. Oh yeah, open book.
Okay. Open book. Go ahead. So I actually met Pete originally when I did his divorce. So quite a long time ago. So Pete, tell everybody a little bit about that.
Okay, so I was married for 28 years. I came out as gay when I was 44. Basically, people always ask me, did you know? And I was like, yes, I did know. But I grew up in the South. I was abused as a child. So to me, it wasn't a viable. And to me, the Brady Bunch is who raised me. You know what I mean? So, and there was no gay characters in the Brady Bunch. Well, there were, but not on TV.
There were? We'll talk about that later. I want to know.
Yeah. So, I just kind of stepped straight into that role. But the whole time, my wife was a serial cheater the whole time, and I was a virgin when I met her, and I was faithful the entire time. Of course, when I came out, I flew the doors open. You know what I mean? But
okay, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, but anyway, so it was very crucial to me after the divorce that I maintain a good relationship with my ex-wife for my daughter's benefit. That's what I always kind of went to. I was like, this is for Heather. I have to have a good relationship. Believe me, there were a lot of things that happened, a lot of things with money, even with my daughter, like her with my daughter, like doing crazy money things that I always had to kind of step into it. And it's so much, I think, about finding the boundaries of this is what I can control and this is what I can't control, and as a father and as the father figure, it was very hard sometimes for me to do that, because men want to swoop in and fix everything. You know what I mean? So, what you have to, if you try to control something you can't, there's just, no, and I've had, quite a few experiences through the years of dating and things like that, where I had this presupposition of this is what this relationship is. And I was the only one holding that target, because I've always been seeking the partner, the whole time. And so I would find somebody that was nice to me. I was like, oh, well, they want to be a partner too. You know what I mean? And then I would find out that wasn't the case. You know what I mean? And so
I know for sure what you mean.
Yeah.
We're both nodding. It's just, I've been there. Yeah, done that.
So it's been so much about, for me, a journey of being okay in my own self. You know what I mean? And I have a new partner. It was so interesting to me. He went away for about 3 weeks to go do some training. And after he went away, I put myself into such a good position. I was actually okay and really enjoying being alone. I missed him, but I was like, I always thought I was like this big people person that always had to have people around them. You know what I mean? And then I really discovered, I never understood people that said I need me time. I was like, what is me time? What are you talking about? And then all of a sudden I had a week of me time. I was like, oh my God, this is like really cool. You know what I mean? So I'm starting to really incorporate that back in there. So I know I threw a lot of soup out there at you, but that's been my kind of crazy life.
Well, and it sounds like though there was lots of forgiveness that had to take place. So if your wife cheated on you, and you probably had to forgive yourself for living a lie, forgive yourself for, I mean, because forgive, I mean, all different
anxiety for forcing you into that box as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I basically came down to like it was almost the end for me. I was basically standing at the garage door with a bottle of Southern Comfort and about 4 bottles of pills.
Oh.
I was just about to go in there. This was 10 years ago. And, I was just like, I had the playlist out, and I was going to climb in my PT Cruiser, and I was going to turn on the air. I was going to be comfortable. Don't let me twist it. I was going to be comfortable, but the two things that stopped me were I thought about that my daughter would be the one that would find me. And I just kept thinking, there's something cool around the corner that I'm going to miss. I didn't know what it was. I was like, there's something I'm going to miss. And I realized, I was like, you can check out at any time, but you can't come back. You know what I mean? And so I even had a friend that was in the same situation. I said to my friend, I said, would you die for your family? And of course he shook his head yes. And I said, would you live for your family? Do you love them enough? Because that's the tough thing. I mean, that's what the sign of a real man or a real woman is if you're willing to live not only for your family but for yourself. At those times, because we all have those times when we're just at the end and we're just like, I'm just not good enough, and this is the only way out, and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? There's that little voice that comes into your head and tries to just convince you. And I think it's so important to realize that you can check out anytime you want, but it takes the real measure of a person of whether you're willing to stand the test of time and go for it.
Yeah, and that's when I think that first of all, we're so glad you made that decision, Pete. But that's when the idea, I think, of forgiving yourself comes in, because at the root of this depression or not feeling good enough or not feeling like it matters is a lack of forgiving yourself. At the very root, it's, somehow I failed. Somehow I haven't done enough. I'm not enough. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares. Right? My life would be better. Starting to get depressed. Just sorry.
You're depressing
So some other things we talked about for forgiveness, and I read about this. Louise Hay used to do, and if you guys know Louise Hay, maybe, hopefully, the mirror work, where and this is a tough one. You think it's going to be easy peasy, and then you look in the mirror and go, "I love you." No, I can't look at you.
There was a time.
I love you. Wait a minute. Is that some more wrinkles? What's happening here?
I love you.
I'll tell you at the beginning of that journey for me, I mean, I literally couldn't look at my face in the mirror. I mean, I literally could not even stand the side. I mean, I was so out of touch with my own self. I literally had to shave out of the corner of my own eyes.
Oh, gosh.
Mirror work was amazing, but it's one of those things. It's a routine. You have to do it, and you have to start where you're comfortable, because you can't look right in the mirror. You're beautiful and I love you. You can't start there. You got to say, you're okay. You're breathing. You have to start where you can. You know what I'm saying? And use a kind of a progression. So.
Yeah, I'm getting better every day, or I'm whatever. Like I'm getting better. What is it they say? Every day I'm getting better in every way, or some sort of little rhyming thing. Yeah. But the mirror work, what's your experience with the mirror work, Allison?
Pretty much the same thing. I was thinking when Pete was speaking, I remember at at the depth of my own despair, it's the only time in my life I wore makeup, and that was my mask. That was so that you didn't see what was happening behind me. And I put lipstick on for you two today, but that's an exception. I find it very difficult to wear makeup now, because it takes me back to that place of trying to hide. So looking in the mirror for me was really very difficult, and I couldn't do the "I love you" straight away. Sometimes I still struggle, let's be honest. We're better, but we're never healed, and I still look in the mirror some mornings and think, but if you just, and then I've got a list of where I could improve and how much money I could spend to improve and whatever. But I think it's, for me, it was just knowing that, and I think Pete, you said that that little thought that there might be something better out there. That's the thing that keeps us moving, or keeps me moving forward. This is shit, but what am I going to learn? That excitement about life that I didn't ever have before, that sense that life is happening for me, not to me. You know, that I'm not always constantly reacting, that I'm actually getting to take part in it. For me, that's part of where I got to when I started to forgive myself, and therefore could start to forgive people outside. But the main thing for me is to be honest. And that you touched on that before, Leigh. And yeah, I had a situation. I had to go and talk to some girlfriends yesterday because I got so upset about my mother. Of course, we're going to talk about my mother again. I got so upset. It's coming close to Christmas time. I'm not welcome at home, etc., etc. People like, Marco's mum phoned and she's happy to talk to us and she's happy to have us. And I felt really sad and I felt really angry. And I didn't want to tell anyone because I've done all the work. I don't want to talk about that. I should be better than that. And if I carry on with that thought, where does it get me? It gets me even more angry. It gets me even more disconnected. So I had to phone somebody and say, can we talk? I hate my mum. And just saying it gives me a release and lets me go back through the process of forgiving, because that's the other thing. It's not that you do it once and you wipe your hands.
Great point.
You do it once and you have to keep going back to it. And I think that's maybe something else that we don't understand. Certainly I didn't at the beginning of my journey. You think that you tick the box, okay, done forgiveness, done self-love, done everything else, next. And it's not, it's work in progress, isn't it? Constant.
There's always one more layer to it.
Yeah. Bloody onions.
And if you went in my living room today, there's a 7-foot mirror leaning up against the wall that I see before I walk out the door. So just to give you an update of where I am today, fast forward.
Well, and I think what Allison just said about that it's not just one time, especially is applicable if you're going through a divorce, because you're going to have to ask yourself to forgive that person over and over, because they're, and that's the whole litigation process often lends itself to bitterness and hate. And that's why I said that's expensive and it's so painful, because you get to relive every bad thing you've ever done to that person. And like somebody came in the other day, they're taping me. I didn't say anything wrong, but they're trying to catch me. They're trying to hurt me. And so you just have, and this is also super important. It doesn't matter if they forgive you. It doesn't matter. It's not important if they don't care or if they hate you, because you're doing this forgiveness stuff for you, because sometimes they won't like you. Sometimes they're the ones that are stirring the pot, and they are doing everything they can to hurt you and to cause you pain. You can't let that be the guide, or you can't let that other person and how they're treating you determine how you're going to feel, which is, I think a lot of people go into reaction mode. When I got divorced many years ago, I remember I would be perfectly fine and I would get a letter from the other lawyer. And I'm a lawyer, so you think I would know. And I would go berserk. Because I would be so angry that they were saying these bad things about me, that they were going to do this and that, right? And you just can't let that other person completely undermine who you are.
Yeah, a situation like that, all these situations are collaborative. In other words, it takes you and them, and when you start, one of the powerful things about that Ho'oponopono, it's like you no longer give that person a grapple hold on you. They no longer have a place to hold on. And if they don't, they just have to find somebody else to grapple onto. It's so interesting when you do that and you watch that person, how you'll see them flip and take that same energy they were directing at you, and they'll find something else to flip it on. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not about me. Yeah. It's not about me.
Yeah. And another, something I was thinking when you were talking, Leigh, one of the biggest things that I don't think we understand is when you're not willing to forgive someone else, you're actually taking all your power, all the control that you have for your own happiness, and you're giving it to that person. You're saying, okay, do with me as you want. Who wants to be like in that situation, especially if you're in the middle of a divorce? You don't want to hand your power away to someone else. So it's so important to take it back and say, okay, what you think about me, what you say about me is none of my damn business. My business is how I'm conducting myself, how I look in the mirror at myself. what am I going to have to do in order to be able to do that? And I'm not just talking, about from a self-esteem perspective, but am I acting as honorably as I can do? If not, what help am I going to need to change that? Because fear makes us behave badly. Hurt people. It's, so what am I going to have to do to step out of fear? What help am I going to have to get? Who can I turn to? Who do I trust?
What are some tips? If you are somebody who's watching, who has found themselves not able to forgive, what's the first steps? What are just some, let's just go around and, Allison, you go first.
For me, acknowledge the hurt, acknowledge the anger, acknowledge the fact that you're finding it difficult to forgive. That's the first step for me, is get it out there, be open. If it's only to yourself to start with, and then you can talk to other people about it. But that for me is step one.
Yeah. Pete?
I mean, I think it's so much about finding a way to move that energy. Like if it's journaling, or if it's doing karate, or if it's rock climbing, if it's taking risks, or if it's working out, or whatever it can be. We've got a mind, body, spirit system where we can kind of hack the system, and we can, if we can't get there with our mind, we can make our body do it. And if we can't get there with our body, we can make our spirit do it. And if we can, it's almost like the mind catches up. Like if you start breathing nice and slow, the mind will all of a sudden start saying, oh, I think we're relaxed. And it'll change your brain patterns. Exactly what happens if you start smiling a lot. This is when I was in my first going through my spiritual thing. I was really sad, and I would force myself to smile over and over and over again. And my brain was like, maybe we're happy, and the happy thoughts started just like coming. So it's so much about, learning how to move that energy forward.
I love that. I really love that. Yeah. And for me, I would say to realize that this is a part of your self-care, because it's not about the other person, like we just talked about. And if they don't react well to your forgiveness, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's not about them. Ultimately, forgiveness, and that's where it's not about what the other person did to you. It's about what you're doing to yourself. And so if you just think about, because they don't deserve my forgiveness, right? I don't deserve it. But you deserve it. You deserve to clear this stuff, this heaviness. You deserve to replace forgiveness with love. If it's not love for them, then at least love for yourself, So, and that's where I just want people, I always try in their divorce. And I remember, and I've told you guys this story before, but there's a certain point in my career as a divorce lawyer where I noticed that people weren't hiring me. And I thought, what the heck is happening? Because everybody hires me. I heard yesterday that I was very mean. A guy came in and said, oh, my buddy says you're so mean. I'm like, oh, Jesus. But anyway, because I won't let people stay in a victimhood. I will not let them stay in talking about it's okay. Like you said, let's vent, let's get it out, let's acknowledge it. But if every time you come in, you want to talk about, if it's been 3 years and you're still filled with hate, that's not getting us anywhere. And that's not who I want to represent. So that's okay. I learned that it doesn't matter if those people hire me. There are plenty of people who want to have fulfilling, beautiful lives. And to focus on what it is, like Allison said, what it is that you want. And I guarantee you, it's not to feel bitter and angry and hurt and miserable, right? I mean, it's to feel so many other amazing, beautiful things. Right. So, guys, it's time for us to wrap up for today. And thank you for being here with us. We hope that this forgiveness conversation is maybe eased the way a little bit for you to move forward in this holiday season. Allison, you guys have anything to say? Allison, Pete?
No, thanks everyone for joining us. And if you want to know any more about forgiveness, ask us. You can find any of us on Project Positive Change, or you can come and join my Facebook group if you're a woman. I'm sorry about that, men. Actually, maybe Pete, you should be setting up your own group to deal with this. My group's called Loved Again and Forever, and we talk about this and many other subjects around that surround your self-care, your self-love, and your relationship. So thanks for having me.
Oh, and so thanks everybody. And I'm Leigh. You can find me on Project Positive Change. And of course, you can find me right here at my law office in Huntsville, Alabama. So guys, have a great day.
Thanks, Leigh.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.